I'm Mark Bridge, and you're watching Pop Culture Galaxy TV. So here goes another one from Sony. Basically, these guys are saying, go ahead, Marvel, have Spider-Man, but the rest of the Spideyverse is ours to do whatever we want to do. So we're getting Venom this October. From the trailer, it looks cool. I'm optimistic, but it could go either way. They got Morbius coming with Jared Leto, and they got Silver and Black. They postponed that movie. I don't know when it's gonna come out, but they postponed that movie. And now they've announced that they have Kraven the Hunter coming out. It's funny. Kraven the Hunter was supposed to be with what's his name? Ryan Coogler actually wanted to use him in Black Panther. You know, that's one of the things he was requesting. Maybe I could get Kraven the Hunter for a villain or one of the villains. But you know, Sony didn't allow it. So now they're going ahead with their movie. I think this is written by Richard Wenk. He wrote Equalizer 1 and 2, which I actually enjoyed, so he could bring something to it. Here's the thing though. Sony's making movies with the villains. Morbius is a villain, if I understand. Like, I don't know too much about Spider-Man's rogues gallery, other than the famous ones, the Green Goblins, the Mysterios, the Doc Ock and stuff like that. But he has a shit ton of villains. Morbius, I think, is a villain. I think Silver Sable is a villain, if I'm not mistaken. And Black Cat. And Kraven the Hunter. They're all villains, but they're making movies with them. I'm trying to get my mind about, are they trying to make them all anti-heroes, or just like, who knows? I don't know what they're doing, but they're going ahead with all of Spider-Man's villains and turning them into heroes. Now, not saying you can't do it. I'm sure there's ways to craft stories around these characters, but are all these movies gonna have the same thing, the same sort of approach to all their villains? It's like, okay, let's make them the hero in some weird twisted way. I don't know. Whatever. Sony has a shit ton of property. They gave Spider-Man loaned Spider-Man to Marvel and Disney, and Spider-Man is in that playground right now to explore his sort of rogues gallery in a multitude of films. Is going to be super hard, considering that Marvel has all these properties and they're getting new properties now with the whole Fox deal. It leaves Spider-Man out in the cold when it comes to doing a shit ton of Spider-Man movies. So Sony doesn't want to rest on this gold mine of characters. So they decided, I want to go ahead and do my own thing. Good on them, you know what I'm saying? It's a good strategy. So let's see how it works for them. If I were Sony, I'd probably do the same thing too. No, you know what? I would make a good Spider-Man movie first and not try to force all this shit. Because if they had made a good Spider-Man movie from the beginning, from right after... First of all, if they didn't even mess with Spider-Man 3, what Sam Raimi was doing, and let him do what he wanted to do, because I think he wanted to do the Vulture next, but they forced Venom on him. Let him do his Vulture movie. Then when you want to do a Venom approach, you say, all right, Raimi, you got 3 films, let's go with another filmmaker who will do it justice. And then you could have continued with Spider-Man movies. Tobey Maguire, he has the organic thing. I don't know, maybe it's good that it didn't do too well, and then they move on to Andrew Garfield, which I thought was a great Peter Parker and great Spider-Man, even though it was a little bit too cool to be Spider-Man, to be Peter Parker at least. It looked a little bit too like, those kids who are popular in school, basically. So he had good qualities. Here we are now with Tom Holland, he's a great Peter Parker and a great Spider-Man. So, no use crying over spilt milk. You know, they're moving on. But Spider-Man is in Sony is in a position now because of them trying to rush things. You know, take your time and build a universe and have all these. You'll get chances to put all these villains in your movies, but nah, they didn't want to do it. Now their hands are tied. Spider-Man is on loan to Disney. Disney doesn't have time to throw in all these heroes because they have their own thing going on. So they're forced to try to pull a rabbit out of their hat. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm confused about this whole movement. In one hand, we get to see these heroes. Oh no, sorry, these villains. We get to see these villains in live action. But on the other, it's not the way we want to see them. You know what I mean? So basically they exist in a world without Spider-Man, which is weird. It's just, but who knows? It might turn out great. Good luck to Sony. Let's see what they do with Kraven. All right. So next up, I want to talk about is another movie which it's this franchise that was shitted on after the second. It's just like gone through the ringer, come out with crappy movies after crappy movies. Even though I did like Terminator Salvation, I realize its flaws. Terminator franchise, the rights to Terminator basically is back with Cameron. I actually love the story about how he got to direct the movie in the first place. He wrote the movie, and they wanted someone else to direct it. This was in the 80s, early 80s, 84 when the movie came out. But I'm sure earlier than that. He was trying to get this movie made. He wanted to direct it, but he's like a straight up novice. So, you know, they wanted a more experienced filmmaker to direct it. So what he did was he sold the script, the rights actually, for $1 so he could direct this movie. So after they gave him the go ahead, it's like, all right, you gave it to us for $1. Go ahead and make your movie. It was a low budget movie for the time, and $4 million. But it was more like a horror film, not more, you know. That movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Like, it scared me so much that, and you know, I'm dating myself here, but I used to have watch movies on cassette tapes. And back in the days, there used to be some tapes lying around, with no labels on them. I would put it in. What's on this? And I remember the opening so well, like the title crawl so well, that every time I saw that, I was like, nope, stop. Not watching that movie. Scared the shit out of me. I would have nightmares because of that movie. Terminator 2 came out. Was more of an action movie, which I loved. But Terminator 1 was just straight up like a scary film to me. So he gave up the rights for $1 so he could make this movie, but with the caveat that it'll return to him in 2019. So it's kind of back with him. I guess he's sort of jumping the gun here a little bit. So basically, he's back with the production team. He's not directing. He's producing now. Tim Miller, who did the first Deadpool, is directing. And he's bringing back all the cast members. Well, most of them. Schwarzenegger is back as an older Terminator, which he kind of did in Genesis. And Linda Hamilton is back as Sarah Connor. Edward Furlong is not coming back as John Connor, sadly. But I forgot the name of the actor they got to play him. But they showed the first official photo of Terminator 6. That's the working title so far. We don't know what this is being called because I doubt it will be called Terminator 6 because they're ignoring Terminator 3. They're going to disregard 3, Salvation, and Genesis. Those movies, according to this film, did not happen. Because in those movies, Sarah Connor, she died of cancer, if I believe. And Sarah Connor Chronicles actually did something crazy and like sent a Terminator to warn her about that. And I really love that show. I wish they could sort of do like a finale for that show. That was an awesome show. Back to what I'm talking about. Terminator 6. They showed the official photo. It has Sarah Connor on it, and then you have Mackenzie Davis she's playing Grace, I think, and Natalia Reyes, she's playing Danny. So you have the official photos with those three characters in it. Mackenzie Davis, she's in the middle. So what? An official synopsis isn't out about this movie yet. What I'm hearing is that Natalia Reyes, she is playing sort of the John Connor role where she's being hunted by Gabriel Luna, a new Terminator, and now Sarah Connor has to protect her, and Grace is also there. She's from the future as well. She's there to protect her as well. And you notice in the picture, Grace has like a bunch of scars. Speculation is out that she might be sort of a hybrid Terminator, or she's just scarred up from being in the future. Who knows? Like I said, we don't know anything about this. The picture sort of gives you what the tone would look like, at least for how the picture is gonna look. I need to see this thing movement to give my full opinion on it. I just have more of a, what you call it, hope. I have more hope because it's Cameron who's producing this, and Tim Miller who directed Deadpool. And Tim Miller, even if you didn't know he directed Deadpool, this is the guy who owns Blur Studios that does those crazy CG like ad campaigns for like Star Wars, The Old Republic, and I was gonna say World of Warcraft, but they have their own team. But like Blur Studios does those crazy CG stuff, like amazing. I think what else did they do? I know they did the Old Republic stuff, but yeah, they did some pretty cool stuff as well. As a matter of fact, the leaked footage for Deadpool, that CG thing, that test thing that leaked, that was from Blur Studios, directed by Tim Miller. So yeah, I have faith that this guy could pull it off, and with Cameron sort of being the spearhead with this thing, I'm there. I'm hopeful of it. All right, so finally, I want to touch upon some TV news. Good news for all the Timeless fans out there. So Timeless was canceled after the first season, and then was brought back, last minute for a second season, and everybody rejoiced. And then it got canceled again, and it was like there was no hope that they were going to bring it back for the third season. And they were even shopping it around, and nobody wanted to buy. But then a ray of hope again. A 2-hour finale will be aired sometime in the holiday season to wrap up everything. Thank God, because season 2 ended with a cliffhanger that, I mean, I love this show. I could see why it couldn't come back. It's not a highly rated show, and it's a very expensive show considering that they're traveling through time, and you have all these period pieces, costumes, cars, vintage cars, and it's gonna be difficult on a broadcast network. That's why I think broadcast they're failing. They're antiquated now, because they live by the ads, the commercials, that they sell. That's their bread and butter. Like, there's no other way for them to make money. And people aren't watching shows week to week anymore. They're binging now. It's a very old model, and you can't. Television is in such a golden era right now where it's a flip. Way back in the days, movies used to be where you experimented with stuff, right? You did a lot of experimenting with films because, you get to put a lot of money in it, and a lot more people went to go see new stuff in the theater. And then TVs where everything was safe, was formulaic, because, you had to appease not only viewers, but also the people who you're selling commercials to. So you had to have everything like on a broad spectrum, like please everyone. So you can't take too many risks. But in movies you can, because you're paying, it's all about us, the patrons, who are going to the movies. So you want to surprise us and titillate us and show us something brand new. But then things started to shift a little. Television started to do some cool stuff, especially when cable started doing original programming, where they're a lot less constrained by, broadcast standards. So they got to do more crazy stuff, and people are gravitating towards that. And then movies start to become safe because now they have so much competition out there. They have to make sure they hit that 4 quadrant, So they have to have a formula with films, had to, the bigger budgets and have to have a safe environment to make those movies. So in order to make that big bucks in the theaters, and then now you can do more experimental stuff with television. So it's a shift. So now with like Netflix and cable like HBO and Stars and all those things doing out there things that are grabbing people's attention, broadcast who have television like NBC and CBS and Fox and all those guys, ABC, they have to still play cautious with their products because they are selling advertising space, so they can't get too crazy. So a lot of their risky shows are getting canceled because not a lot of people are watching those shows. While like say 3 million people watching an HBO show is good, but 3 million people watching an ABC show is not good. Yeah, it's a strange thing. So basically, I'm just glad that Timeline has a chance to wrap up their season, and make sure if you do go back and watch season 1, you get a good conclusion. And I'm glad that we live in an era now where that can happen. Like, our popular shows back then never got a chance. Like I brought up before, Sarah Connor Chronicles. There was never a 2-hour movie, anything like that. But cable is doing that now. People are desperate. Like, we want to sell this as a package. I'm sure they did that so that when it comes time to sort of like, not syndication, because I don't think there's not a lot of episodes for that, but like a sort of package. Put it on Netflix, put it on Hulu, whatever. You selling this is like, it's a complete story for people to just binge and just watch it as a sort of limited series. So I'm super happy. I love that show, and I'm glad that it gets to wrap up. Alright, so that'll be it for this episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, give us a comment. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, people. So join me on my journey to 1,000 subscribers. So until next time, folks, peace.